Hi, and welcome to the Days Gone podcast. I'm Claire Weaver, a screenwriter, author, and Days Gone fan, and this podcast is a place to discuss the game in all its glory, share my opinions, both popular and unpopular, and listen to me fangirl over one of the best games ever made. There will be spoilers ahead, so continue at your own risk. Welcome to the Freak Show. I always enjoy inviting guests onto the podcast, and none more so than the amazing, the incredible, the famous Spawnicus Rex. Welcome back.
Hello, Days Gone podcast. I'm so happy to be back. How are we doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
I think it's going to be okay.
Bright skies are ahead.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so before we get into our topic for today, I want to issue a correction, a mea culpa, for something I said in an earlier episode.
Uh-oh.
It's not, no one's going to care because it's about Schizo, but I need to, cross my T's, dot my I's, and do the double Z. So I'd mentioned in a previous episode, I think episode 3, but I don't fully remember, that I thought Schizo used to be a lawyer or worked at a law firm. And that was kind of how he had that sort of gift of the gab, that ability to remember everything that people had said and know how to use it against them. I remembered it wrong. In my recent playthrough, I came across the scene that I was thinking of, and it's when Deacon goes to Sarah's grave and tells her about Schizo and how Schizo has the story about being a gangbanger that Deke doesn't believe a word of. And he thinks that Schizo's the kind of guy who was a frat boy and went to work in his dad's accounting firm. And that's the part where I thought he said law firm. So I kind of messed that up.
And you call yourself a Schizo fan?
Well,
how dare you?
hang up, because what's interesting about it, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, because it gives a whole new kind of little layer to Deacon and to Schizo and to everything. What is interesting, aside from me being wrong, is that Deke says that Schizo is full of crap. But actually, obviously it's the truth. Deke's the one that's making up stories about Schizo. Jason Spizak told us in episode 11 of the podcast, he confirmed that the gangbanger history is true. And also that Schizo never had a father figure. So the idea of Schizo being the spoiled little rich boy who went to work in his daddy's company, he doesn't even have a fucking daddy, Yeah. He is from a rough background. Yeah. Now, of course, we do find that collectible, that card from his grandparents congratulating him on graduating. Yeah. And we don't know if it's high school or college, but either way, he was obviously on the right track for a while. So my theory, my kind of headcanon, is his parents weren't in the picture, or definitely not his dad. And maybe he was raised by his grandparents, and they kept him on the straight and narrow.
And they were total helicopter parents, yeah.
Maybe just supportive and like sweet grandparents, like maybe spoiled him a little bit, which would kind of explain a lot. But then maybe sometime after he graduated, they passed away, and he went off the rails.
Okay, yeah, that's possible.
And there's one of the missions, Deke tells a story about his dad. He says, "When I was a kid, we found a rat's nest beneath our shed. My old man tells me to go get the hose. You know what he said to me? I'll never forget what he said. The best way to deal with rats is to drown them." Now, side note, that's actually a true story from John Garvin's childhood, the writer of Days Gone.
Oh, wow, okay.
He confirmed that on Twitter. But what that tells us is that Schizo and Deacon are actually not so dissimilar. They both have poor father figures, and both have lived a life of crime. And I wondered if that was the reason why there's so much animosity between them, is because they're kind of alike in terms of their start point in life. And it's only because of their moral code that they ended up on different paths.
Okay.
That's my theory.
That is interesting. I mean, honestly, I see them as total opposites because, Schizo is the kind of guy who will take any advantage that he can, anything he can turn to his advantage and to your disadvantage, anything he can use against you to get ahead, where Deacon is the guy who, if you're someone that he gives a shit about, he will never betray you. And even Schizo, he doesn't give a fuck about Schizo, but he would never stab him in the back. He would have never done something to betray Schizo. He would have, if he decided to ruin Schizo's day, he would have been very upfront about it. Like,
Well,
dude,
he does. He
yeah,
slits his
well,
throat, but
yes,
he does it from the
absolutely.
front.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't come up and stab him in the back like Schizo would. He doesn't use subterfuge and lies and deceit.
Right.
He comes at you head on and deals with the problem head on. So I honestly, I think they're total opposites. Yeah.
But I think I think they have similarities. It's how
Okay.
they bring how the rest of their personality is brought into that, how they react to that.
Yeah.
How they choose to take action, like you say, in two very different ways. It's kind of like
Yeah.
an ethical code or moral code or a learned way of behaving.
Yeah.
It's like they've just been taught differently because obviously, Schizo goes and joins a gang and Deacon goes and joins the army.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could get more dissimilar than that. Although, that
The
said,
structure,
the
yeah. Very,
structure,
very many gangs have a paramilitary structure.
the idea of loyalty.
Well, the chain of command and they have a chain of command and they have, a loyalty to an ideal, a code of ethics,
Mhm.
and even standard operating procedure, just like they would in the military.
Yeah.
So it can, some gangs can be very rigidly structured, just like the military.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is another similarity now that you mention it. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's get on to the main topic of today, and I'm actually going to let you bring this up because you're the one that suggested we talk about this.
Okay. So yeah, the reunion of Deacon and Sarah. When Deacon finally finds Sarah working away at the militia camp as a researcher there, and they get a lot of hate. The game in general and Sarah in particular gets a lot of hate for the way that's handled because on the surface, it seems like she really just doesn't give a shit. It's like, oh, you're still alive. All right, cool. Go run me some errands, errand boy, go get me some shit from out in the shit. And it's like, there's no real passion there. There's no bright and shiny, oh, I love you, baby, jumping into his arms shit. It's a much deeper story than that. But I would argue that people who only see that deep, you're just looking at the surface of a still lake. Days Gone is like a still lake. It's only shallow when you're looking at it on the surface. Once you jump in and actually dive in and see how deep it goes, there's a lot of story there. There's the character collectibles. If you actually take the time to find Sarah's character collectibles and her lab notes, they go into a lot of her perspective, and it kind of explains why she reacts the way that she does. So I've got some talking points ready here. Like a little nerd, I made some notes before we got started.
Oh, me too.
So let's hear, now that we've gone into that, let's hear your side of it. How do you look at that situation, their reunion?
Man, their reunion, I instantly knew that this game was special. I fucking loved it. My first reaction, because up until that point, you've been worrying, like, is he gonna find her? Is she dead? And you kind of know, obviously, they're not gonna build up to this and then be like, oh, no, sorry, she died 2 years ago, whatever. Like, he's gonna find her at a certain point in the game. So I was wondering how it was gonna play out. And I think if you were expecting a happy reunion, you were not paying attention to the cruelty of this world.
Right. Yeah. This
is not a romantic ending. It's not a game that has a romantic ending. It still doesn't have a romantic ending right at the end. I mean, it's a happy ending-ish, but it's not.
Well,
it doesn't really feel fine and light and fluffy. It's
right.
Everything is tinged with blood and pain and trauma. The entire story is about blood and pain and trauma. If you think you're just going to roll up to the militia and be like, oh, hey, babe, and she's like, hey, I missed you, let's go have sex. Like, no. What the fuck? No. And when they delivered on the reunion, and I want to get into the acting and the tiny little nuances of that scene. I want to get into that in a minute. But just in general, that scene where they meet, I was like, this is perfect. This is what we deserve, and also
Brilliant.
what makes sense. Yes, brilliant. It makes total sense. And then I go on Reddit and everyone's like, "Ugh, Sarah's a fucking bitch," and she, I'd have just left her there. When she says "fine, leave," I'd be like, "Fine, bitch," and just like, no, what game were you playing? Like,
Yeah,
what?
right. What
did
fucking
you-
world do you even live in?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to like anyone listening to this who's disagreeing with me, but I don't get it. I don't get how you can watch the story unfold and think that it's just gonna be a happy kiss kiss, I've missed you, we're all good, let's escape the militia and run off into the sunset and be fine.
Yeah.
And it does Sarah a disservice as well, because she's
Sure.
just not a plot device.
She's a real person.
She has a whole bunch of shit going on. And the whole I think people just gloss over what she is trying to achieve with the militia.
Yeah.
She's looking for a cure. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
No,
we can
go
get
ahead.
into that in a second. Yeah, I think people overlook her point of view, and they're just like, "Oh, Deacon wants his wife. Here's his wife. Wait, he can't have her? What the fuck?"
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's that perspective of people who are used to instant gratification, It's like, I want what I want it right now, and that's all that's going to do. But I think that the people, I agree with you completely, and I think that a lot of the people who feel that way and have that first reaction, they're most likely people who've not taken the time to go into the collectibles and Sarah's lab notes, and they haven't taken the time to go find the in-game materials that give you her perspective so that you understand her perspective more.
I don't even think you need to do that. I mean, certainly at the beginning, you don't have access
that
to
very
anything.
first meeting, it's like, whoa, she was being kind of a bitch. What's really going on here? Was my thought. What's really going on here?
She's not being a bitch though, and I'm gonna break it down for you. I want to play the scene, and I want to break out exactly what's happening. But I don't want to interrupt your thoughts. Sorry, you were going somewhere.
No, I've already forgotten.
Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Can I play the reunion scene?
Sure, let's do it.
Matt, I can't do this if I have to do my own supply runs.
I got it covered. Lieutenant Whitaker, this is Corporal St. John. He's a new member of Kouri's unit. He's got some experience out in the shit.
Read this.
What?
Read this. I mean, you can read, can't you?
Active ingredients: chloroform, aterpenol, benzoyl alcohol, lactic acid.
Good enough. When can he start?
Ah, I'll leave you to it. Carry on, Lieutenant.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there because I want to talk about what just happened. I mean, obviously, there's a certain element of physical acting that's going on that we can't hear on the podcast. The first thing is the look on her face when she sees Deacon. She is shocked and like in disbelief. And the very first thing she does is she glances over at the Colonel and realizes, I have to hide this.
Yeah, I've got to cause a distraction.
Yeah. And what she does is she shoves the bottle in Deke's hands and says, read this. It's a misdirection. She's immediately coming up with a cover story, or not even cover story, just covering the idea that they know each other, that there's a moment happening here. And she's like, fuck, I can't let him know that there's a moment happening. I have to just stick to the script of I'm barking orders. He's just a grunt.
Mm-hmm.
And Deacon,
Taken aback.
He's taken aback. He's kind of a little slow on the uptake, but he's also in shock because he wasn't expecting to walk in and see her, though he has had about a 30-second head start on her. But he very quickly realizes to play along. And
Right.
I think that's something that people maybe don't realize is that
He's no dummy.
yeah.
Leave us.
Sarah.
Stand at attention.
Sarah, I...
Don't. No, You're dead. You're dead. You're supposed to be dead.
Hey.
You're dead.
It's okay.
You're dead.
I'm right here.
Wait a second. I don't understand. I couldn't find
You
you.
had died, and
No, we were overrun,
Who's overrun?
and we had to go south. Nero, they said
Nero,
that no one made it
I found
out.
O'Brien, and I
Farewell
found
was
a way
overrun. They said that everybody
over the
was
mountain,
dead.
And I didn't think that
I never thought I would see
I
you
would ever see
again.
you.
You know, she tells him to stand at attention because she cannot believe what she's seeing. You know, you even see it, she backs off a little bit. She's kind of scared by his presence because she doesn't want to open herself up to all the questions this raises, and all the hurt and the grief that she's gone through is suddenly coming back. Bear in mind, she thought he was dead 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
She's grieved him. I know Deacon has his own grieving process that we talked about the last time.
Or his own not grieving process.
His own denial of grief.
Right.
She's obviously grieved him and moved on, and has become a hardened person from that.
Yeah.
I think she's kind of put aside all of her personal emotions, and she now has this new mission that she's hell-bent on to save the world, you know, to find a cure. And suddenly it's like, oh, I'm expected to suddenly have all these feelings and these memories and everything kind of come back. And she's just like, whoa, no, what? Whoa, hang on a minute. And it's like,
She feels the walls starting to come down.
yeah. And she's just like,
Yeah.
no. Wait. Like she just needs a minute. And then, oh my God, it brings me to tears every time when she puts her hand on his face to like,
Yeah. Is he
see
really
that he's
there?
real. And
Yeah.
she doesn't say it's really you. She says, no, you're dead. She
Yeah.
can't believe it.
And you know, that's another coping mechanism, another way that people deal with grief. If you can find a project or a passion or something to pour that energy into. And so she dived in and focused on her work. Once
Yeah.
she got settled in with the militia there, and was allowed to resume her research in an actual lab facility, she put her everything into that. All of her anger and rage and sadness goes into her work, just like I would say really she was maybe even avoiding the grief, just like Deacon had been, by channeling everything into rage and aggression and recklessness. She is instead channeling that grief into working on her research. And so she hasn't really processed the grief either. And bam, right in that instant when she sees him standing right in front of her, there it all is again. There's all this grief and emotion again.
I am nodding so hard. It's denial. She's kind of in
true.
denial of her feelings in the same, or not in the same way, in a very different way to
Mhm.
Deke. But it's a similar thing. And I think it speaks to this world that it doesn't give you a chance to catch your breath. You know, it's not like,
Oh God, that's so true with Days Gone.
right. I mean, it's not like the normal grieving process in the normal world is fucking hard. You know, it
Mhm.
comes at you when you least expect it. It takes years, or if you ever process it,
I
you
do know.
it's fucking horrible. And then you throw that into a zombie apocalypse, and
Right.
basically you're fighting for survival every single day of your life, where you're thinking about, where's your next meal coming from? How safe are you? Do you have enough ammo? Do you have enough gas? Is there anywhere you can go where you can physically be safe just for a fucking minute?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably
So
not.
how are you supposed to deal with any kind of emotion in that? You can't. As we talked about last time, you know, you have to tamp it down.
They're pretty much all broken, damaged people at this point, you know.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
expect them to have a normal emotional reaction because they're not healthy. They're not healthy emotionally, you know. They're damaged, broken people at this point.
Yeah. And, you know, we've seen a little bit of what Deacon's gone through,
Yeah.
you know, because we
But
played it
none of what
as
she's
him.
gone through.
Yeah, we don't get to see. I mean, she has cuts and bruises on her face.
Right.
You know, we see her later. She she's like, well, I mean, at this guy, she's like barking orders at the guy who can't read the bottle, and a Deke. You know, she can handle a gun, which is an obvious, you know,
That's a big
reverse
change,
image of what happened in the flashbacks, where she doesn't even know how to fire a gun or hold a gun or shoot a gun. And then, you know, she's so focused on this mission that she has. And it's all consuming, which is kind of the same as she was before in the flashbacks, but in a much harder, colder kind of way. Her love of botany and flowers and all of that was so sweet, almost sickly sweet in the flashbacks. Like, it was so over the top, nice and soft and romantic.
Yeah. Bunny hugging, flower picking hippie. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And now she's, you know, dressed in military garb, barking orders, and she's still focused on the research.
And shooting people in the face with no hesitation.
Yeah.
That's a big change.
Yeah. So she has been through some shit, and, you know, we just don't get to see it. We have to bring our imagination to that. We have to do the work. And I think that goes back to where people don't want to put in that work. They're just like, hey, what up, Sarah? How you doing? Wait, you're in a bad mood? Why are you being a bitch?
Yeah.
It's like, wait, she's just gone through 2 years of hell. Like, you don't even know, because the game doesn't tell us. That you have to infer it.
Yep.
You have to see it.
That Days Gone. You got to look a little deeper, you know?
Yeah. And then I want to... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. This is your show.
But you're my guest, please.
Okay. So I don't know. I think, you know, so many people, they always fall back on that. Well, Deke should have hooked up with Ricky instead. You know, he, you know, fuck Sarah. He forget about her. She's a bitch anyway. He should go back to Lost Lake and be with Ricky instead. But, you know, honestly, I don't really like Ricky all that much. I mean, you know, she's cool as an individual. She's excellent character. I love the acting and everything. But really, she's just really thirsty and really salty. Okay.
Yeah.
Because throughout the whole game, she's trying to cheat on Addie. You know, which is just despicable. You know, she's trying to cheat on Addie with Deacon. She's trying to get him to give up on his loyalty to his wife. And, you know, she's trying to get him to give up on finding Sarah at all. She's constantly, you know, trying to shut him down every time he's trying to go search. You know, like, is it really worth it? You know, well, fuck yeah, she's worth it. It's my wife, man. Get the fuck out of here. But anyway, so you know how sometimes you have that one friend and they're with somebody that you just can't stand the person they're with, but they're madly in love with that person and they're really not trying to hear anything bad about them. So it's not about what we want for Deacon. It's about Deacon wanting to be with the person that makes him happy. It's not about what we want. It's about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another perspective to me when I see people crying about, oh, Sarah's such a bitch. You know, she's so cold. You know, you should go be with Ricky instead. No, man, it doesn't work that way.
I think in Ricky's defense, though, I have a slightly different perspective. She is, from my memory, I don't know how much she's trying to dissuade him from following the clues about Sarah. But certainly earlier on, before he even like talks to her about that, or before he knows anything about the fact that she might still be alive, Ricky is, I mean, sure, there's the cheating on Addie. She says they have an open relationship. Who knows how true that is? Obviously, Addie doesn't agree with that. It's not.
Yeah.
That's a separate issue. But in terms of what she's doing for Deke is similar to what Boozer's doing for him, in that trying to get him to see you need to move on from this. Like, you know, we talked about this in the last episode, that sure, everyone grieves at their own rate, but Deacon needs to pick up the pace because his grief or his inability to process it is destroying him and destroying the people around him. So it's almost like she's saying, okay, I'm getting something out of this too, but like, hey, let's hook up and you'll feel a lot better.
Yeah. You know, you give a little to get a little, you know?
Yeah. She's taking one for the team, you know? She's helping out Mandy.
Surely. Yeah, you know, that's all it is.
And I mean, we can tell from pretty much all of the female merchants that you meet in the game, like, Deke's obviously got a little something going on. I don't know if you found a can of Axe body spray somewhere or something, but like all these women are like thirsting for him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's kind of hot, I mean, come on now. Let's not kid ourselves here.
I mean, kind of, but
And he's got Sam Witwer's voice too, though. I mean, there's a lot to be said for a sexy voice, right? Yeah.
I'm definitely. I remember saying to my husband when I was in the first, few hours of playing the game that this is before I knew how much I was going to become obsessed with this game. And I
Yeah.
think it was like when you still just have Tucker and Copeland's camps, and I'm just driving around the motorbike, and I remember saying to my husband, like, I'm enjoying this game, it's fun, but I'm really trying to crush on the main guy, and it's just not happening. Because I really did because he's my type. Just in case, I think he's a lot of people's type, but he's definitely my type. But there was just something about it that didn't kind of do it for me. And it was kind
He's
of like,
got kind of a Neanderthal brow, which Sam Witwer does not. Sam Witwer does not. That's just
right.
Deacon's animation or whatever. He's got a bit of a Neanderthal brow. Yeah.
Do you want to know what it was though? This is so funny. So the point at which I really started to get invested in the game was when he gets to Lost Lake. And, I think that's in part because of all the characters and the story, and everything starts to pick up and it starts to have this nuance and this depth to it. But you know what else happens when he gets to Lost Lake?
What's that?
He shaves.
Yeah, he kind of cleans up a little bit.
He cleans up
right.
a little bit. I don't do beards. The beard thing, I think, was the turn-off. I think the little light stubble, that was what got me. I was like, okay, now you can come in my bunk.
Now, see, being the guy, I literally never even looked at that, and literally just, I mean, I thought it was funny because he knew Ricky was going to be there, or maybe it's because he knew Blair was going to be there. He was
Does
like,
he
"Hey,
know Blair though?"
I think they do. She knows him. She knows him.
Wait, how much you said? I think they do. How much is I think they do, and how much is I think they do?
No, I think she's crushing on him, and it doesn't go any further than that because Deacon, no other women really exist for him as a woman,
And that's also so fucking hot. That bad boy that you just want to help him heal, and you want to fix him, but he won't let you. Oh.
He won't let you, yeah. Because he's just so loyalty. He's so loyal. He's not going to let anybody else in. But I thought it was funny. I found it comical myself in a positive way that he kind of spiffied up a little bit before he went in. Because either because he knew Ricky was there or because he knew Blair was there. Either one or both. Shit, I don't know. Yeah.
Wait, doesn't it happen when he's going to sneak in?
You are absolutely fucking right. Yeah, I think in the back of his mind, he knew he was going to have some interaction with them, or I don't know, maybe, shaving the beard off helped him be more stealthy. I don't know.
It's cuts down on the rustling in the bushes. I don't know.
Yeah. That's our story. We're sticking to it. Yeah.
I want to go back to the reunion scene because there was a couple more things I wanted to bring up about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too.
Skipping forward to when he says that he wants to take her out of there. And she tells him she can't leave.
Right.
And he's like, oh, what? Are they holding you against their will?
His first reaction, are they holding you? Fuck that. We are getting out of here. And she's like, no, she doesn't want to go because she's working on something.
She's working on something. Now, he's a soldier. He, previously had signed up to the military and fought and come out the other side of that. This is her opportunity to sign up for a cause and fight for a cause. She truly believes it's a mission that supersedes everything else.
Yeah,
it's like he's come out a jaded, veteran with PTSD, and he almost forgets that she hasn't gone through that, and she's still the kind of optimistic idealistic
young soldier thinks we're going to win the war and change the world.
This is a war we can win. That's what she says.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
And he's just like, obviously with what he's been through, he's like, no war is winnable.
Yeah. I was in the army. I hated every minute of it. And, and that's his perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
And he knows that even if you technically win a war, there's still sacrifice and loss and death. So it's not really winning. So it's just a difference in their points of view. And then she asks him to stay and help. And she promises that after she's done, they can go wherever he wants. and it's Deacon who shuts down, salutes, and calls her ma'am.
Yeah.
You watch it, he's just like, he's turned off at that point. He's not listening to her. And the body language, oh
Yeah.
my God,
Yeah.
the body language. She is yearning to connect with him, and he's the one that's pulling back. He pulls away first, he turns around first, he has his head down, she holds on to the clipboard, and he just tries to take it and go.
Yeah.
It
Shit, yeah.
speaks volumes if you just stop and look and pay attention and think about where they're at and what they're
Yeah.
going through.
So I find it ironic that I'm in this situation, but I guess I kind of have to defend some of those naysayers who say she's just being a bitch because, guys, we really don't read body language that well in general,
And I think that's what's happening here. I think Deacon isn't reading it right. I think he's guilty of this. And yeah, not to say Sarah is absolved of all blame, because she should just fucking say, like,
Yeah.
hey,
I mean,
but in the moment, it's like it's a
awkward for both of
4-minute
them, yeah.
scene. They're trying to process everything.
Yeah.
That's what makes the game worth. You keep playing because it then becomes about them reconnecting. It's not in a scene; it is in 10 scenes and missions, and all the collectibles and the logs that she leaves, the field notes, all of that. It's building towards, because if this were real, you would not just have a reunion moment and be like, yeah, we're fine.
Yeah.
It would take time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's really fantastic that we, myself and other members who are experiencing this podcast as the audience, I think it's really fantastic to get the female perspective on it. Because, even I get what's going on. I was able to see deep enough, and I explored the backstory stuff deep enough that, I get it. I fully realize it's a heavy fucking moment,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think you're bringing up things that, like, I didn't really see that, the depth of the body language and stuff. I didn't really catch all that the first time, so I think it's really fantastic to get that female perspective on that, because it's definitely there to be seen if you're looking for it,
Mm-hmm. And it just, again, goes to show how incredible the acting is, as well as the script and the story and everything. It's like they really sell it, not just through the words. The body language sells it as well. The body language is telling a story. So there's another scene, I forget exactly where it falls, but it's, just after this, where they're talking again. It might be the next time they get to talk. And they're kind of having an argument. And what struck me when I watched it is that it plays exactly like a real couple's fight, where they're just, I said this before, they're just kind of like not in sync, like he calls her work bullshit, and it's not, he doesn't mean it's bullshit.
He doesn't mean it, yeah. But you can't get those words back. You can't get those words back once they're out, yeah.
It's exactly like when you're married and you have a fight, but it's amplified because they've both been dead to the other person for 2 years and they're in a zombie apocalypse, but it plays exactly like a real couple's fight. And that line when he says he spent 2 years out in the shit killing freaks, so close he can smell the flesh rotting between their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
She hasn't thought about that. This is on her.
Yeah.
He hasn't thought about what she's been doing. She hasn't thought about what he's been doing. She hasn't been out there.
Not like that, yeah.
Not like that, no. And he is a new person. He's changed because of that. Because the first time he ever kills a person is during the chaos in Farewell. Or at least I think that's kind of inferred.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I know he and Iron Mike have a discussion about, it's the line is it's not murder if they start shooting at you, but I guess that probably goes more back to his days in the military rather than his days in the motorcycle club. So he was active duty military, so he may have killed people in combat, but the first time he put a gun in a civilian's face and blew them the fuck away was when they were trying to get out of the city in Farewell.
Yeah. And I don't know much about the military, but one thing I do know is that they desensitize you to that. That
True.
it's
It's part of
not
the training.
murder, it's not killing, it's you're doing a job.
It's us versus them.
Yeah, and it's pull a trigger. It's
Yep.
not shoot someone in the face.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's had to do that for 2 years, you know, he's become a new person. He doesn't know what she's working on at that point. He's thinking about a weapon. He actually says, you know, "Oh, I'm all in. If you're coming up with something that'll just blow them the fuck up," or whatever his line is, he wants a weapon, just like
Mhm.
everyone else wants a weapon, and she's there searching for a cure.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when he calls her ma'am again, it's basically telling her to go fuck herself. You know,
Yeah.
that's how they're not listening to each other. They're a married couple in a fight. It's
Yep.
just amplified.
Yep. And that's one of the little, my little nerd notes that I made here before we got started. That's one of the ones is where, she's actually working on a cure, not a weapon.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the character collectibles in her lab notes.
Right,
I went
okay.
through the lab notes before we started. And one of the first ones is she's talking about Deacon making that dumb joke about the yeast. He goes and collects the yeast, which we all know that's used for making bread, right? But she needs it so that she can like get viral proteins from it or whatever and cultivate something in a petri dish. And in her lab notes, she stops talking about her research and starts talking about Deacon's dumb joke about the yeast and viral proteins. Like, oh, that's so adorable. That's so Deacon,
Mhm.
and, he was just trying to ease the tension, just something to ease the tension. But she can't stop thinking about his funny little joke, even while she's busy doing legit important work. So that's
Mhm.
just another thing about her perspective. She just absolutely adores Deacon. And if you can laugh at somebody's dumb jokes, that tells you right there you really like this person,
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then in some of the other lab notes, they're full of her rambling thoughts about Deacon and that he's all she can think about. He is literally, all she can think about while she's supposed to be concentrating on research. And then she never tells him about what she's working on. She never shares the nature of her research because, and it says in her lab note here, I wasn't building any goddamn weapon. I wouldn't do it for Cloverdale, and I sure as hell won't do it for any militia either. And if I'm going to hang for lying or for treason, then I will hang alone.
Mhm.
So she wasn't willing to let Deacon get hurt behind her subterfuge because, the militia was only funding her research so that they could have a new biological weapon. And of course, she's not making a weapon. She's letting them believe what they want to believe. It's more a lie of omission, I guess, rather
Right.
than actual dishonesty. But, she says, if I'm going to hang for treason and for lying, then I will hang alone.
Yeah.
So that's why she never shares what she's doing with him. She never really just tells him more than, hey, I need this and this and this. Can you go get them for me?
She's protecting him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
again, that's one of the things I think that gets overlooked.
Yeah. At her own risk, at
Yeah.
risk to her, at grave risk to herself. Yeah.
Because she knows, and it goes back to that very first moment where she sees him and she looks at the colonel. Because she's
Yeah.
like, oh, fuck.
Oh shit. How is he going to react? Yeah.
This is going to go
Now,
bad.
and of course, one of the arguments that's fairly legit is if they had said straight out, oh, hey, Colonel, let me introduce you to my wife. This is actually my wife. We were married before the collapse and everything. I think it may have been an opportunity for the Colonel to see it as a happy reunion. I don't know. If you could play off of his religiousness and be like, hey, we were married in the eyes of God. This is my wife. If you could spin it that way, it may have worked out. But I think she knew better. Yeah, I think she knew better because he's a fucking nut job wacko. So,
Yeah.
very unpredictable.
I think that he wouldn't have let Deacon stick around. I think Deacon would. He's the colonel is kind of a little bit of a schizo in that he can make people disappear. And I don't think he would have allowed it because Sarah, at that moment, when she's still air quotes working on a weapon, he and Weaver's weapon isn't any further along.
Mm-hmm. So she's just a valuable resource at that point.
Is a valuable resource, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna let you get distracted. So I think Deacon would have been disappeared.
Yeah.
And also,
You're probably right. Yeah.
in that moment, they're processing so much. And I've had, not to get too deep, but I've had like bad things happen to me that when you go through a traumatic event and then you come face to face with someone who has no idea what you've just gone through, you put on a brave face.
Right.
You don't, you
Oh,
can't,
I'm
it's
fine.
so hard to say, oh my God, this terrible thing literally just happened to me. Because you're like, oh, when I see this person, I go, hi, how are you? And then once you said, hi, how are you? It's like, well, how do you say, oh, fuck, no, I just, this traumatic event just happened.
Yeah.
It's like this weird kind of disconnect in your brain. So she is like, I am in military mode. Here's Deacon, what the fuck? But I'm still in military mode because the colonel's here. I have to keep doing what I do, which is, yell at the grunt. And be focused on my work.
She's got to be the lieutenant. Yeah.
It's just too much for the human brain to process how to navigate such a unique moment. So that's my theory on kind of why that scene played out how it did.
Yeah, it's another one of those situations that it could not have played out any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, realistically, yeah. So she also mentions one of her lab notes. She mentions that she went to his barracks.
Oh, that bit always
but he was
hurts my
sleeping.
heart.
So she actually goes in the middle of the night to reconnect with her husband, but he was sleeping. And so it's like, well, why would she be going to his barracks in the middle of the night? She was trying to reconnect with her husband.
Yeah.
But I put this to you, since you don't rest in the game, you don't allow Deacon to go to his bunk and sleep.
He never sleeps. Deacon
you
does
are
not need
keeping
sleep.
him from spending time with his wife, ma'am.
Well, when I heard that, I was like, wait, Deacon was never in his barracks? What are you I didn't know where they were. I'm like, he has barracks?
Not in my playthrough, he wasn't.
He just rides his bike all night. What are you talking about? But yeah, when I heard that bit, I was like, oh my God. Like, she did. There's so many little pieces of evidence that she is trying to connect with him. Yep. And each time he turns her down, but then he tries to connect with her with his humor, and she's always had that history of not quite getting his humor on the first go around. And now it's like he tries to whip out a funny one-liner and she's just like doesn't get it, and then it can't, because they're in an awkward place, it can't seg into, oh haha, I didn't realize you were kidding, let's have a bit of a laugh about it. It segs into, that's just put me in a pissy mood. Because you're joking and I'm not in a joking mood. And it just goes back to that thing of when you're with someone and you're in a long-term relationship, and then you have those moments where one of you's just kind of pissy, and the other person just rubs you the wrong way.
Nothing is going to make it better. Yep.
And then they try to make a joke and it's like, do you not realize that I'm in a pissy mood? You just made it 10,000 times worse. Like, that's what's happening.
Yep.
I tell you what, though, the scene in which she gives him the requisition order that has the note
with the note on it? Yeah,
I never stopped loving you. Oh my God. That broke my heart. That was just like, oh, finally, they're coming together.
Well, I mean, sometimes that's how it is with guys. You have to literally write it out with the crayon. You just have to write it out with the crayon. And then these, okay, here's your sign. Okay, gotcha.
The whole storyline for me is what makes this game so special. And when people on Reddit, and I have to restrain myself sometimes, but when people are like, I don't get it, I'm like, what fucking game were you playing that you didn't get that? I mean,
Pocket
sure,
pool.
you may not get the nuances of it, because we've played this game multiple times and I've watched these cutscenes multiple times, and I started a podcast where I talk about this multiple times.
But in all fairness, we kind of picked up on that shit the first time.
Yeah, I got like at least 70% of it. Yeah. It's why I love the game.
Yep.
Speaking of loving the game, you mentioned that you had a little side topic you wanted to talk about. You described it as the soul-crushing emptiness that comes after finishing a playthrough of Days Gone.
Yes. Now, I don't know that we have time to explore that black hole in this episode, but yeah, it's when you finish, I mean, I guess we're at the end of the game, toward the ending segment of the game where Deacon and Sarah actually reunite and everything. So after that, after you complete the story and you're done with your playthrough, what do you play next? What do you do with your life next? It's like that feeling of like, if you ever read about the first astronauts to walk on the moon, when they came back to Earth, they all went through depression. They all experience depression because it's like, this is the magnum opus of my life. You're never going to top that ceiling.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that's ever going to be interesting and fascinating and fun after this, because there's nothing else that compares. And now, of course, it's just a fucking video game. It's not that serious, but it compares at least, because as far as other video games, what do you play next? What can you possibly play that is as deep, as nuanced, as such a well-told story that's not bashing you in the head with a hammer, making you, trying to tell you what's wrong and what's right. It's a deep, nuanced story that's fun to play. What else are you going to play after that? I mean, I'm honestly curious because I haven't found anything that pulls me in like that.
Well, I have an answer if you're actually genuinely asking me the question, or you're asking.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, my answer is New Game Plus.
More Days Gone.
Days Gone again. Like, why do you need to play anything else? Just New Game Plus.
That is the correct answer. Tell the lady what she's won, Bob.
I win a washing machine.
Right.
Yeah, I have not answered that question. I mean, what I did when I finished the game is I stuck with it after the credits roll, because obviously, we both know there's a lot more still to do.
Yeah, there's more story to experience.
Yeah, but it actually has a nice little way of kind of easing you out, because a lot of games it's like, and roll credits, the end, goodbye. And it kicks you out, kind of like exiting a strip club at noon, and you go out and it's like
after last call,
yeah. Or like when they turn the lights up in a nightclub, at the end of the night, and the lights come on, you're like, what the fuck? What's happening?
Right.
Days Gone doesn't do that.
It doesn't do that to you.
Allows you to stay in the world, and it gives you a reason to stay in the world, and maybe that's why it's so hard to leave.
And then there's challenge mode and stuff too.
Oh my god! I just got into that.
Just resetting the hordes and resetting the ambush camps and all that stuff. A lot of people don't even know that you can do that. I surprise people with that all the time. They ask the question, "Well, what do I do now?" It's like, well, I mean, if you're into it, you could reset the hordes. You can do that? How do you do that? Well, it's right there on the main menu, man.
I haven't done it yet. I'm finishing my current playthrough on Survival 2. And when I'm done, that's what I'm going to do. Because I think you've mentioned it before, that the map basically is insane when you reset everything, because normally when you play the game, you kind of clear, areas and sort of, you have your little pattern, and there's certain places where you don't need to go. So you can kind of ignore that horde for a bit until you've got better guns and all of that. But if you just drop everything back in...
So here's my suggestion. This is just how I do it. When I do reset after beating the game, I only reset the hordes and I reset the ambush camps. I do not ever reset the infestation zones. There are two reasons for that. The primary reason that I do not reset the infestation zones is because that affects your fast travel routes. You then have to go in and reopen those fast travel routes.
Wait. I'm going to interrupt you. So you sleep and you fast travel? Fucking cheater. You're taking the shortcut.
I mean, I guess, give me my 20 lashes with the cat of nine tails now, because I'm guilty as charged, But yeah, I do sleep and I do fast travel. Now, fast travel I don't use a lot. Like I say, that's only one reason for why I don't reset the infestation zones. I don't fast travel a lot, primarily only, let's say it's late, I'm short on time, and I just want to knock out a few objectives. I'll use fast travel. Or if I'm just hopping around to my hidden loot locations that I've made the videos about all the locations where you can pick up loot that's ready to be used. If I'm just hopping around making a circuit to those hidden loot locations, I'll fast travel. So I don't use it a lot, but it has specific uses, specific instances for when I do use it. The second reason that I don't like to reset the infestation zones, and you're probably gonna bust out the cat o' nine tails for this one too. I fucking hate the crossbow, and the crossbow is the best way to burn out the freaker nest is with the
You don't
crossbow.
have to use the crossbow just
It's
because
the
it's
most
the best
economical
way.
way. Yeah, it's the most economical way. I mean, you can pick up the little red fuel cans and use those to ignite the nest, but there are never enough fuel cans for every nest in most areas. So, and especially the crier nest, the crossbow is absolutely the best way to get the crier nest is the incendiary bolts from the crossbow.
Yep.
But resetting those infestation zones means I've got to put that fucking crossbow on my back again.
I love the chaos of because you've said previously that you should take on the hordes early, and like right from the get-go you should be taking out hordes. There are some small hordes in the Cascades.
At least get that SMP9.
Yeah, I hear you, it makes sense, but I love leaving the hordes in because I just love the chaos of it. I love the idea of like, I need to go from A to B, here's the road, I'm gonna go this path, fuck, there's a fucking horde in the way!
Run!
I have to go a completely different route to avoid them, or I have to stop and take them out. Like, I love the chaos and the danger. It's just, even on Survival 2, where it is fucking nuts, it's bonkers. And I've only just unlocked the breaker. I just got to Lost Lake. Well, I'm like halfway through the story at Lost Lake, I think. So I'm still like, I haven't got the Screamers yet. They're not out. The Reachers, the Criers, like none of that shit is out. I find Highway 97, that area, tough, even on...
Fucking brutal.
I don't even know. Like, I will try to take out a horde and we'll run into another horde, and then we'll run away and run into another horde. I'm like, motherfucker, why are there so many hordes?
Really?
Like, just join up and be one horde and they can just tackle you all together. It is so hard. So I'm so looking forward to getting there on Survival 2 because I know it's going to be really tough. But also when I'm done, I can reset everything and just have it be bonkers. Because that's my idea of a good time.
Absolutely bollocks, yeah.
All right, couple things before we wrap up. You can support the Days Gone podcast by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/daysgonepod, where if you're feeling generous, you can throw a little money in the tip jar. I want to give a very special shout out to Lena for buying me 3 coffees this week. Thank you, girl. I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. All right, well, we're just about out of time. Remind us where we can find your live stream.
Okay, so I stream on YouTube every Saturday night from 8 to 10 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time or U.S. Dallas time, either way. And right now we're doing The Last of Us 2. And every Saturday and a few extra here and there if I can find the time for it.
Speaking of extra streams, starting on November 23rd, you and I are going to be streaming Days Gone together as part of a new collaboration called The Feedback Loop. You can catch that on the Spawnicus Rex YouTube channel starting Tuesday 23rd at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time.
All right. Well, it's been a blast. Thanks for having me back.
You can email me your thoughts, comments, opinions, and counter-arguments at daysgonepod@gmail.com. You can also find me moderating the Days Gone subreddit. Thanks for listening. Weaver out.